There's really nothing to lose in being yourself, right?
There's really not.
And there's everything to lose in the opposite.
Welcome to another episode of Everyday Badassery. I'm your host, Christine Lozada, and today I'm traveling in Portland, Oregon. I actually had the opportunity to be part of breaking the world record for most number of dinosaurs in one place at a given time. I was dinosaur number 316. But this is a traveling podcast meant to inspire you to be just 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. And today's topic is insanely important to me. It's about being yourself. In other words, authenticity. And I'm traveling in this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, in Bellevue, Washington. And so you'll be seeing tons of amazing scenes of the awesome trip I had here post TBEX, the Travel Bloggers Exchange. And I had the opportunity to meet with somebody I've been fangirling for a long time. Chris, AKA the Traveling Mitch. He's from Canada, and he's someone I actually met on, of all places, on Twitter. To meet someone on Twitter and to feel like you authentically, truly know who they are is very difficult. Someone has really got to put themselves out there as their true selves to come through on a platform of very short amounts of words at a time. And I really feel like I got to know Chris over the last few years on Twitter. Woo! So I'm so excited to bring him in to share his perspective on authenticity. But there's something you need to know. I told him we were going to do this exactly 60 seconds before I mic'd him up while we were late for breakfast and needed to walk across a lot of buildings to get to said breakfast. So that is the footage you will be hearing as we bring him in.
I don't want to go from 0 to 100 here, but I do that a lot.
No, let's go from 0 to 100.
I do that as well, but I kind of feel like there's not enough time not to just go for it and do your thing, and I think that should sort of permeate everything you do, you know what I mean? So I try to be fully myself in whatever I'm doing so that if someone meets me online, quote unquote, and they meet me in person, they're not like, I don't understand who this person is.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I think you realize after a certain period of time on this planet that there's really nothing to lose in being yourself, right?
There's really not.
And there's everything to lose in the opposite.
Tell me, it has, like, where did your sense of, like, this importance of authenticity come from? And has there ever been a time that you weren't as yourself as you are now?
So I'd like to think that if I'm doing things right, every day that I wake up, I'm becoming more myself. I think that's a process. We've talked a lot on this trip about like the idea that we're kind of always a work in progress, and I think that's a healthy way to think about life.
Yeah.
You know, as far as when I felt like maybe I had license to be more authentic, I mean, for me, and I talked to you about this, you know, off the mic, but I lost a good friend when I was 21 years old, and quite honestly, once I understood, I guess, how short a period of time we could be on this planet.
Yeah.
I understood that I had to do everything I could to make every day here count, and to me that meant that all the voices that I thought about of you know, people judge me for this or for this, that, and the other, I realized that at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it's really just about whether or not I can be happy when I sit down to judge or reflect on myself. So for me, that was everything. I think, you know, the initial part of like grief or loss or something like that, you curl into yourself a little bit, but then you hope that you kind of unfurl as something stronger. And so it seemed easier. It seemed easier than I thought to just sort of say, fuck it, you know, and just be who I'm supposed to be. I mean, I think it's harder some days, but most days it's easier.
Yeah.
Just to be you.
I like this 0 to 100. Hell yeah. I think you can see why I really love Chris, but I want to take a moment to remind you that there is a free journal download. I would love for you to take what you're hearing and put it into action. And I'm actually going to take you through the question that's in there for today, which is, I just want you to think for a second about the 5 people in your life that you spend the most amount of time with. This can be like your family or your friends or even your coworkers. Who are the 5 people that you get to see or who get to see you the most? And now I want you to ask yourself, how much are you yourself around those people? How silly are you? How weird are you? Or how serious are you? Or how introverted or extroverted or quiet or whoever you truly are, how much of yourself can you truly be around those 5 people? And I'm going to share a personal story, which is it took me a long time to, I love the book Marie Kondo, The Joy of Tidying Up. I may have butchered the title, but link in the description below or in the show notes if you want to find that book. And yes, a lot of people say, oh, it's about decluttering your sock drawer and making sure everything's, neat and orderly around the house. But the way I read that book was I tidied up the people in my life, and the people that did not serve me and did not give me joy, bam, they were gone. And the people who did, I spent more time with those people. And there are definitely people who do not bring you joy that you cannot remove from your life, but you can change who they are to you in your life and how much time you spend with them. In other words, I spent more time around people that I could truly be myself around, my weirdest, most authentic self. Because here's a story I feel uncomfortable sharing. In an old life, I used to spend times in places like, I'm just going to name it, the Jonathan Club. The Jonathan Club is an elite social club in LA, and you have to dress a certain way. We're talking sport coats at dinner with, I got to wear my dress and my high heels, and I need to speak a certain way and hold myself a certain way and be polite in a certain way and be so stuffy in a certain way. It was painful to be in that environment, and I don't ever want to go back to that life I used to be in. I had to exit through the back door and walk in through the back door because I'm oftentimes wearing yoga pants. And I don't like to be super dressed up all the time. I like to be comfy, and I do not wear things that are not spandex around my waist. So sorry, Jonathan Club. But I didn't feel like it was my authentic self. And I realized I needed to get the F out of that environment and not spend any more time around people who love that environment because it's so not me. So ask yourself about the 5 people who get the opportunity to see you the most. And are they the right people that you should be spending your time with and you can be your most authentic self with? Or what shifts and changes can you make in your own life to get to finding more joy in the people you spend time with where you can really be yourself? And make sure you check out, if you haven't listened to the episode of I Was Married, He Had a Girlfriend, and the Rest is History. That podcast episode, link in the description below. It's part of the reason why I truly love Meatball. He and I can really be ourselves, our true authentic selves together and really lift each other up. Find those people in your life and hold on to them dearly. All right, let's keep it going. Actually, how would you introduce yourself?
How would I introduce myself?
Yeah, who are you?
So I'm Christopher Mitchell, and do a lot of different things, but I guess the best way to put it would be I run a few different websites, and I run a blogging newsletter, and perhaps the most importantly to me, I run a blogging community based in Toronto. I think blogging or this style of I guess content creators in general, sometimes it can be such a space where we're all off on our own islands, and so
yeah.
I'm trying to do my best to plant a flag in other islands and be like, hey, you can come here, but we can be a bit of a community.
Yeah.
And I think also, I talk a lot about the idea of collaboration over competition, because I think the reality is that, when you put your guard down for a second, you realize actually there's way more power in us working together, and there's enough space and room for us all to be able to
It's so true.
to thrive, right? And I think
the world needs all of our voices.
That's right.
Yeah.
And also all of our voices are extremely different, right?
Yeah.
And I think that comes with time too. The initial stage of creating, I think you're emulating, right? You've read something or you've seen something and you thought, maybe I can do that. And then later you hope the tables are turned and someone else comes to you and says, hey, I really like what you're doing. And you think, maybe I found my voice, right? And then you double and triple down on it.
Yes. I was actually talking to Kenya about this last night, how it took me time to really lean into who I am.
Me too.
And you have to practice that voice, and you don't have it right away from the beginning. It's exactly what we're talking about. It's always a work in progress. Hyatt, this way. It's always a work in progress. And even my voice now is still shifting. Like
Same here.
I really thought I would be weirder yesterday than I was. I didn't really deliver the way I thought I could.
I thought you delivered very well. But I think we're talking a lot about voice. I think it's like you just try to work harder every day to have your voice be stronger than the voices in your head that used to tell you that you shouldn't use your voice.
Yeah.
And that takes practice. I mean, and it's not always like a perfect science, right? Some days you say something or you do something and you're like, I don't know, you're like, oh gosh, I'm gonna over-examine this. I'm going to something, and then you hope that you can sort of back out and continue to back out and realize like it doesn't matter, And if you think of yourself as somebody who is only going to be striving to be perfect, then you're never going to reach that. But you can strive to be great, but understand that we can only do our best.
Yeah. I want to be vulnerable and put myself out there and offer you one more story, which is actually, this kind of ties to this morning when I was in that dinosaur suit, which, by the way, my dinosaur suit deflated on me. The fan that keeps the whole thing blown up, it like stopped working and was only at like 25% of the amount of normal fan speed. So the whole dinosaur became extinct around me, but I still kept fighting on anyway. It was pretty miserable, actually, to be honest. But I wanted to do this thing because, well, one, I truly love dinosaurs. And I thought it would just be a really fun and funny thing to do. And I realize, as I am going to post about this on LinkedIn, when I do this, I often get a lot of messages from people who used to be old colleagues of mine, or even friends who knew me when I used to be a corporate professional, whatever the heck that means. And I often get messages that sound like this. Wow, Christine, I saw you in a picture recently and you wear a lot of weird things these days. Or, wow, I saw you talking on your podcast and I can't believe you would dare talk about a topic like that. And the way I think about it is twofold. One, yeah, I'm going to talk about it because that's who I am. And it has not been easy for me to talk about and I'm still working on it over time. In other words, it's not a natural thing to overshare or a natural thing to talk about these difficult topics sometimes. And not everyone thinks this topic is difficult, and some others might find it very difficult to be themselves, but that's just it. For the person that I am truly going to help, that this message will speak to, I will all day sacrifice myself to the judgment that I get from a lot of people on a daily basis to enable other people to find their voice, to find their authentic selves, and to lean into who they truly are, because there's no better person to be in this world than you. So let's take it back to that original OG question I asked about the 5 people who get the opportunity to see a lot of you on the daily basis. And ask yourself, are these the 5 people that really bring you up and bring out you and the best you possible? Because that is so important. And I have made choices in my life to get out of the corporate world, to get a divorce, to change who I spend my days with, because this time on earth is really short and don't waste it. But that's another thing. The more time I spend away from the corporate world, away from the life I should have been living, away from the life that I did not feel myself in, the more me I bloom into. And that voice is still coming out. I'm still testing the edges. You heard me talking to Chris about this. My word for 2022, each year I have a single word for the year. It's kind of like my theme, or like the one thing I go to, in addition to all the, reflections and blah, 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 and the New Year's resolutions. But my word for 2022 was weird. I wanted to see how hard I could lean into being the weirdo that I totally am. I'm a freaking weirdo. I love to be silly. I love corny jokes. I like to laugh obnoxiously. I like to do silly things, and it's just me. And I wanted to see how much I could push that this year. To be honest, in hindsight, I don't think I pushed it enough. But ask yourself about those 5 people, and about maybe just set a one word for yourself around as you become your most authentic self. What's that one word you want to call upon when you need to reach deep down and find more of yourself in that moment? And one of the things I love to do is try very hard here on this podcast and in all the content I make to be the most me that I could ever be. And when it comes to meeting people, I meet people all the time, whether I want to or not, whether I'm traveling with people or I'm traveling and people recognize and find me or whatever it is. And I always like to ask people this question: Am I what you expected me to be? In other words, after watching all of my content, is the person that you're experiencing right now who you thought you would meet or who I would be? And I will be honest, the answer I'm over 100 instances of this has been yes. And that's super important to me because I want to show up as myself every single day because, and this is for you, show up as yourself. There's no other person you ought to be than your best self possible. All right, let's ask Chris the signature question. Hell yeah, last question. Are you a badass?
I mean, am I allowed to self-appoint myself as a badass?
Yes.
You know, I guess it depends on your definition of badass, but I feel like I'm living my truth as best I can right now. And you know, enough so that I grabbed a cup of coffee. I had 1 minute to prepare to come and chat with you, and it wasn't hard for me to get on that track because, you know, I think perhaps the most badass thing you could do is to be feeling like what you're doing is aligned with who you are, and here I am.
I shall knight you a badass. Yes, yes. Thank you. Let us begin.
Beautiful.
Good morning. I think you can see why I love Chris, the Traveling Mitch. Find him info in the show notes below, as well as the really sweet video of traveling around Bellevue, Washington. It's actually a pretty freaking cool place. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Please share it or leave a review. It really does help to distribute it. Download your free Badassery journal. Journal along with us in this. Go forth. Be badass. Be your most badass self that you can be. And we'll see you in the next adventure. Ciao.